Have you ever been around someone that just makes you feel uncomfortable? You either feel small, anxious, defensive, nervous, scatterbrained, or just plain uncomfortable when you are in this person's presence? And have you ever wondered if maybe you have this effect on other people and you want to do the complete opposite and you want to be somebody that people always feel comfortable around, whether it's in business, personal, or social settings? You want to be the complete opposite of that. You want to be the person that people always feel comfortable around. If you want to know the answer to that, then sit down and stay tuned, because in this video, I'm going to share with you some simple ways to make people feel comfortable around you. Hey guys, my name is Paul Macetta, and I am a researcher and publisher in the field of human communication. So if you like learning about human communication and things like NLP, salesmanship, body language, verbal language, and how to influence and persuade other people elegantly and effectively using the power of communication, then go ahead and consider subscribing and hit that bell notification so you get updated when I release more videos like this. So look, we've all been in a situation where we've been around somebody that made us feel uncomfortable. It's a weird feeling, and really what goes on is our body is telling us, get away from this person. You do not want to be around this person. You're not enjoying the interaction, and ultimately you just want to flee and get away from them. And conversely, when you are in a social situation or in a business situation, you do not want to be that person. You want to be the person that people feel comfortable around, people want to be around, because ultimately what that leads to is more fulfillment, more opportunities, and more resources, and more deep, meaningful relationships. So, how do you do this? So, there are lots of different ways to make people feel comfortable around you. What I'm going to talk about is one of them, which is called social calibration. It sounds like a fancy term, but really what this means is anytime you enter some sort of an environment, you always want to assess all the people in the room and socially calibrate what is going on. Specifically, what you're looking for is the status of the people in the room. Now, depending on the context, environment, and circumstances, sometimes that status will be based on rank. Hey guys, if you enjoy this type of content, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell notification so you get updated when I release more videos like this. It really does help the algorithm. And make sure you click the first link in the description so you can get access to a free resource I've set up just for you. So, for example, I train Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. There's a belt ranking system in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It goes from white to black, and there are 3 belts in between. So you got white, blue, purple, brown, and black, right? On average, what this tells us is that a white belt has been training less than a year. A blue belt has been training 1 to 2, maybe 3 years. A purple belt's been training 3 to 5 years. A brown belt might have 7 or 8 years under their belt. And a black belt, on average, probably has about 10 years of training experience. Now, let me be clear. When I talk about rank, I'm not talking about their rank as a person. I'm not talking about where they stand in terms of their personal character. I'm talking about in the context of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu environment. So in that environment, we are all there to train, to roll with each other, to ask questions, to teach each other, to help each other, to bounce ideas off of people. And understanding a person's rank gives you a better idea of how much knowledge, wisdom, expertise, and technique and experience they have in the arena of training Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So sometimes the rank is very apparent. Like if you walk into a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academy, you know right away where everyone stands in terms of the amount of wisdom, knowledge, expertise, and experience they probably have when it comes to training. The same is true if you walk into like a corporate environment, right? You might have the president, the CEO, the COO, the district manager, the area manager, the general manager, right? There is a hierarchy of status that is based on rank. This is important. The reason why it's important is because when you understand someone's status as it relates to rank, that gives you an idea of, number one, again, how much knowledge, wisdom, expertise, and experience they have in that arena. And it also gives you an idea of how you should be approaching them and how you should be communicating with them. So for instance, if I walk into a jiu-jitsu academy, I'm probably not going to be asking a white belt how to do a certain submission or how to do a certain guard pass. I'm probably going to leave that to a blue belt or a purple belt. This also depends on my rank. So if I'm a purple belt and I've been training 5 years, I'm not going to go ask a white belt a question about something that I'm unsure of. I'm going to go ask a black belt. I'm going to go ask my instructor. I'm going to go ask somebody that I know has a wider knowledge, a wider range of knowledge on this topic than I do. But aside from that, it also tells me how I should be carrying myself around this person. So if I'm a purple belt and I'm around a white belt and we're talking about techniques, I'm going to feel a little bit more liberated to share my opinion and my outlook on things than I am maybe when I'm speaking to my instructor. I'm not going to talk to my instructor about jiu-jitsu in such a way that makes it appear that I might know more than he does. That's just bad for social interaction, right? And this is a problem that I see running rampant in the world today. And the easiest way to explain it is people not knowing their place, right? There's a term that people use when they're like, man, that guy just doesn't know his place. Like, what do we mean by that? Ultimately, what people mean by that is that there's a social dynamic going on and that person is somehow violating the social dynamic, right? And it could be done in a multitude of ways, but that's ultimately what's happening is they are violating the social dynamic and the hierarchy of the social dynamic in some capacity. So the first way of utilizing social calibration is by just simply observing people based on their rank. Okay, that's the first one. The second one involves social status that is not based on rank. So this has nothing to do with the person's position or their hierarchy in the company or the organization or the environment. This is all based on how they are carrying themselves. So in every situation, be it social, casual, business, whatever it may be, there are high status individuals and there are low status individuals, or I should say lower status individuals. The reason why that is, because some people might disagree with that and be like, no, everyone's equal. No, everyone's not equal. There are certain people that carry themselves in such a way that give them an elevated status. And the only reason they are elevated is because there are people that have a lower status. Remember, you cannot have shadows without the sun. You cannot have heat without cold. You cannot have good without evil. There always has to be an opposite in order for the original thing to have a context or to have a meaning. So in order for somebody to be exhibiting high status behavior, well, what dictates their status? It's the comparison to the other people that are showcasing low status behavior. So, what is high status behavior? High status behavior is confidence, erect posture, clear, concise speaking, and a way of just kind of radiating an energy off of yourself where you're exuding confidence. Low status people do the complete opposite. They stumble over their words, they talk in a lower tone, their posture is usually hunched over or draped down a little bit, and they're a little bit quieter, and they almost come off as timid. That's how you can immediately, that's one of the initial cues that you can use to determine who the high status and the low status people are in the room, is how they're carrying themselves and how they are communicating. Are they standing up straight with their shoulders back and their chin up? Are they speaking confidently and firmly, clearly, concisely, and speaking in a way where it seems like this person believes with full conviction? Are they speaking with clarity, confidence, and conviction when they communicate? That's generally a sign of a high status individual, and a low status individual will do the complete opposite of that. Now, what does this have to do with making people feel comfortable around you? Well, what it has to do with making people feel comfortable around you is, if you don't know that person's status, you're not going to know how to communicate with them. So first, you might violate the social dynamics in the room and not know your place. Now, you've done something foolish, something stupid, and like everybody's kind of looking at you as being that guy, right? Like the annoying guy. And so, I'll give you an example of this. So, we had a mastermind, which is a group of highly successful entrepreneurs that meet 3 times a year, and we meet, we talk business strategy, we have food, we have experiences together, and it's just a great environment to be in. Every once in a while, we will allow a guest to be a part of the experience. Now, to be clear, this mastermind experience that I'm talking about was not cheap. It was upwards of $40,000 for each person to participate. So it's a $40,000 a year membership fee. And with that, you get consulting, you get coaching, you get the experiences, you get the food, you get all that, right? Every once in a while, we'll allow a guest to come. Now, that guest could either come for free, they could pay a lower price, like they could pay $1,000 or a $5,000 seat fee, whatever it might be, but they are a guest. They have not been accepted as a member yet. Well, in the last mastermind, we had a guest in the house, and we were in a mansion, and we have food in the mansion. So I do a lot of the cooking because I enjoy cooking, and we had some food in there. I asked one of the people that runs the show to buy some eggs and toast and bacon and stuff, and I said, I'll make breakfast, for us, because I'm going to want to make breakfast for myself, and since I'm cooking, I don't mind, making it for other people. And so before I even got a chance to make the breakfast, one of the guests was requesting a custom style breakfast. So he was telling the coordinator how he wanted his eggs cooked, how many eggs he wanted, how many pieces of bacon he wanted, and he was essentially like making all these demands without considering, first of all, how much food do we have? So you're saying you want, it was kind of an obnoxious number. I think he wanted 6 eggs or something like that. Whereas the average person might eat 2 or 3, this guy wanted 6 eggs without even considering how many eggs we have, or how many other people are going to be eating, or how many people I need to cook for in order for this to be practical. So that was the first thing. So I made him the same 2 eggs that I made everybody else, and I made scrambled eggs because when you're cooking for a lot of people, trust me on this, scrambled's the way to go. If you try to do it over easy or sunny side up, things get messed up. Not everybody likes their eggs like that. So I was like, I'm making scrambled eggs, take it or leave it. I took whatever, 2 dozen eggs. I put them in a giant bowl, salt, pepper, whipped them up really good with some butter in a pan, and I make a mean scrambled egg. So I made some scrambled eggs, I divided it up, and I was able to feed everybody. I fed 12 people. Each person got roughly 2 eggs, 2 pieces of toast, 2 pieces of bacon. And that was the end of it. So the next morning, this person, I guess, was unhappy with the fact that he only got 2 eggs and they were scrambled. So he went downstairs and took it upon himself to make his own breakfast. So we had bought more eggs for the next day. What did he do? He opened up and took 6 eggs. So there's 12 eggs. There's 12 eggs in the carton. He took 6 of them and made his own breakfast before anybody else got up. This is a prime example of a person that doesn't know their place. So what I mean by that is, first of all, he's not even a fully paying member. So you're in this environment that you were invited to be as a guest. Everybody else there paid to be a part of this experience, a significantly higher amount of money than you did, and yet you are coming here and taking it upon yourself to act like you paid more money than everybody else. First of all, you are eating other people's food first of all, he looked at how many eggs were in there and he clearly saw that there was only 12 and he decided to take half of them. That, in and of itself, is an issue. Secondly, he didn't ask anybody if it was okay if he did that. Thirdly, he was using utensils and cookware in the house without asking to use it. And he didn't even wash it when he was done with it. So this is just, again, does it make him a terrible person? No. But it's a clear example of someone that doesn't know their place. And so really, something just as subtle as that that's him violating the social dynamics in the house. So what does this have to do with making people feel comfortable around you? Well, if you violate the social dynamics in the situation, the byproduct of that is that people aren't going to feel comfortable around you. They're going to be like, oh, it's that guy. It's that guy who doesn't know his place, right? That's one way to repel people away from you. So you need to be cognizant of that. So one of the easiest ways to make people feel comfortable around you is to assess their social status in the environment and then adjust accordingly. So here's what I mean by that. There are certain people who feel more comfortable when they are around other high status individuals, and there are certain people that feel more threatened when they are around other high status individuals. And so let's take the high status individual. If I'm around somebody and I've determined that they are a high status individual type of person, I will communicate with them in such a way that lets them know that I am equally a high status individual as well, by using clear, concise, confident body language and spoken language. I will also, given the opportunity, talk about my knowledge, wisdom, and expertise. But here's what I won't do. I won't volunteer that information. What I will do is I will talk to them first. So this is how you determine. It's another way of determining a person's social status. So again, I could look at the visual cues first and get a pretty good idea, but then I'm going to ask them questions and let them talk. And then based on how they're answering those questions, I can kind of figure out what their true status is. And so then based on that, I'll let them talk. Like, remember, people love to hear themselves talk. They love to talk about themselves. They love to be the center of attention. So I'll allow the person to do that, because in the process of doing that, 2 things are happening. Number 1, they are feeling better about themselves because they feel like their status is being elevated even more, but they're also giving me some key insights to who they are. And then, based on what they tell me, when they ask me the question about what I do or who I know or what kind of business I'm in or how I help people, then I will match their status. And that will make the person feel like, okay, cool, this is the type of guy I want to be in the room around. Now, with lower status people, if you approach them, and again, remember, let me be clear here. The context of this video is how to make people feel more comfortable around you, okay? Persuading them, influencing them is a different video. What we're talking about here is how to make people just feel warmer and more comfortable, how to make yourself feel warmer and make people feel more comfortable around you. So around lower status people, in other words, if there's people that maybe are communicating with poor body language, they have a low tone, they're showing me that they're not really confident in themselves, or maybe I begin talking to them and I find out that in this context, they're relatively new, they're a beginner, they don't have a lot of knowledge, wisdom, or expertise. I'm not going to try to overpower that person with my status. That's going to make them feel very uncomfortable. So what I will normally do in that situation is actually lower my status a little bit to match them and get on their frequency, or depending on the situation, I actually might lower my status significantly to make that person feel like they have a higher status. That is ultimately what is going to make them open up and feel more comfortable around me. So being able to assess a person's status using what I call social calibration is super important. Now, here's the thing about this. I wish I could tell you there's a hard and fast way to do this, but there isn't. It's really based on assessing the person's verbal and nonverbal language and listening closely to the way they answer questions, and then making what you hope to be the best educated guess you can make. Look, sometimes you make mistakes. I know I have. Sometimes I will assess a person doing a social calibration technique and I'm way off. I might think that that person has all the status in the room and they turn out to be a nobody that's just posturing. Or I might look at somebody in the room that I assumed was like the weakest link in the room and they wind up being the most powerful. It does happen, right? So this is a very subjective thing with very blurry lines, but the best starting point is, again, first, look to rank. If there's a ranking system of hierarchy within the environment, if that's not available, you want to look at how people are communicating verbally and non-verbally, and then ask them questions to get a better idea of how much knowledge, wisdom, expertise, and experience they have as it relates to the environment that you are in. So if you are in a cooking class, when you communicate with somebody, you want to find out, are they a novice? Are they a professional chef? Have they done this a million times? Because that, again, should dictate how you communicate with them. If you walk into a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academy and you know and understand everyone's rank there, that should let you know what you should be doing and not doing, what you should be saying and not saying. If you are in a mastermind of very sophisticated and very successful business people, and you know, for example, that one guy in the room has done, let's say, $400 million last year, whereas every other person in the room, the most they've done is, let's say, $50 million. So this guy's got pretty much everyone in the room beat in terms of revenue by almost 10x. He's got a higher status in that capacity, right? Now, statuses can also change, right? Depending on what we are talking about. So let me give you an example. Let's say I walk into a mastermind of highly successful entrepreneurs, and there's this one guy, like I said, that's done $400 million, and the most anybody else in the room has done is $50 million. So he's got everyone beat by almost 10 times. When I talk to him about business, I have to understand that he has a higher status than me. This does not mean he's a better human being than me. It doesn't mean that he's more virtuous than I am. His value system is better than mine. It has nothing to do with that. It just has to do with the fact that in this context, his status is higher than mine. The same way as like when I walk into a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu academy and there's a black belt there, that black belt has a higher status than me and I need to address him accordingly. if there's a black belt, if I'm a black belt and there's a black belt that's been a black belt before I even started training, I'm going to act accordingly when I'm around that person. Now, here's what I mean by when situations shift. Let's say I walk into a jiu-jitsu academy and I'm a purple belt, so I'm kind of in the middle, and I'm communicating with a black belt about Brazilian jiu-jitsu, right? I'm going to lower my status and just understand that my status already is lowered in that context, and I'm going to act accordingly. But then let's say that person in their career, they are a computer programmer and they hate their job and they want to get out of it and become an entrepreneur. And I'm an entrepreneur. And they start asking me questions about that topic. Well, now in this context, my status has shifted up because now we're talking about something that I have more knowledge, wisdom, expertise, and experience in. So now my status is elevated and I'm going to act and communicate accordingly. Similarly, if I was in that room with that guy that did 400 million and I'm talking to him about business, I'm going to accept that he has a higher status than me, act accordingly, and learn what I can from him. But later on, let's say when I was doing the cooking, if he came over to me while I was doing the prep and started asking me questions about cooking, and I started asking him questions, and I got the idea that he has very limited experience in cooking in comparison to me, who's been doing it for probably 20 years at this point, our status is going to shift, right? Because now we're talking about something that I have more knowledge, wisdom, expertise, and experience in. So the simple answer to this question is you first assess verbal and nonverbal language, and then you figure out knowledge, wisdom, expertise, and experience. Who has the most of that dictates their status in that environment, and then you want to act accordingly. And acting accordingly means either A, in certain cases you might match the person's status. In many cases, you're actually going to lower it or concede to the fact that they have a higher status and act accordingly so that you don't violate the social dynamics, show that you do not know your place, and become that guy or that girl. If you stick to these very simple guidelines, you will do very well when it comes to making people feel comfortable around you. Guys, there are lots of different ways to make people feel more comfortable around you. This was just one of them. If you want to learn some more, let me know in the comments, and I'm happy to share with you lots of different ways to make people feel more comfortable around you. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up, hit that bell notification, and subscribe if you like this type of content.